Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to say, looking at the stack of sources for today,
Yeah.
it, it initially felt like someone in the research department made a filing error.
It does look like a bit of a mess on the desk, doesn't it?
It's so eclectic. We've got these deep dive articles on, vaudeville history, psychological breakdowns of insult comedy, biographies of Don Rickles,
Uh-huh.
and then stapled to the very back of all that, a PDF of a primary school newsletter from Tar Night Rise,
Ah.
dated December 2020.
Specifically issue 40.
Right. So on the surface, we're jumping from the raucous atmosphere of the Friars Club to a prep classroom in Victoria, Australia.
It's a bit of a leap.
But the mission today isn't just to read these widely different documents. It's to find the wire that connects them. And after going through all this, I think the sources are arguing that the wire is the script,
The script.
the invisible script,
Yeah.
the algorithm, whether you're a comedy duo trying to make an audience laugh or a 6-year-old trying to make a friend over Zoom during a pandemic, you are following a set of hidden rules to make that connection happen.
That's the key word, algorithm. It actually appears in the school newsletter, which I'm sure we'll get to. But you're right. Today is effectively a crash course in the mechanics of human connection.
How we build it up, how we test it.
Right. How we build it with a partner, how we test it with an insult, and then how we try to repair it when the world falls apart.
Okay, so let's start with the builders, the double act.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people, they know the famous ones, Abbott and Costello, Key and Peele. But looking at the history here, it's not just two people being funny. It's a rigid structural engineering problem.
It is. The sources really break down the archetypes, the comic and the straight man. And traditionally, the audience thinks the comic is the talent, the banana man.
And the straight man is just there, at dead wood.
That's the brutal industry term for it, yeah. Or the stooge.
But reading through the analysis of these acts, the argument is that the deadwood is actually the most important person on stage. They're the architect.
Absolutely. Think of it this way. The comic is usually a person acting like a lunatic or an idiot. Without context, a lunatic isn't funny. They're just concerning. The straight man provides the context. They are the audience's proxy. They anchor reality so the comic can break it.
So the straight man is framing the reality.
Exactly. In the industry, they're often called the feed. They feed the premise. They tee up the ball for the comic to hit.
And I found the origin of that role fascinating because it wasn't an artistic choice at first, was it? It was a technological problem.
Right. Go back to the music hall and vaudeville era. Late 19th century. You have no microphones. You have rowdy crowds, clinking glasses.
So you can't hear anything.
Exactly. If a comic delivered a punchline, the back of the room might not have even heard the setup.
So they needed a human repeater.
Essentially, the straight man's original job was just to repeat the setup or the heckle loudly so everyone heard it. What's that? You say your mother-in-law is coming to stay. It was purely functional.
And then they figured out they could get a laugh out of it.
Well, yeah, they realized, wait, if this guy acts all pompous or overly serious, the joke hits way harder.
And that whole dynamic shifts when technology shifts. When we move to cinema, specifically Laurel and Hardy, the repeater isn't needed anymore.
The microphone does the work.
Right.
And that's where Laurel and Hardy they revolutionized the format. Since they didn't need to shout to be heard, and they started in the silent film, they moved the dialogue to their faces.
The fourth wall break.
Oliver Hardy looking directly into the camera.
I love that move. It's him saying to the audience, do you see what I have to put up with?
It creates a triangle. You, me, and the idiot. It invites the audience right into the relationship. And importantly, the sources note that Laurel and Hardy didn't stick to the strict smart guy, dumb guy routine.
We were both kind of dumb.
Yeah, just in different ways. They shared the burden of the laugh.
And that sharing seems to be what keeps a double act alive. If it's too one-sided, it just dies. The British seem to be obsessed with this balance. The stack highlights Morecambe and Wise as the gold standard of the genre.
In the UK, absolutely. And they tweak the formula again. Their writer, Eddie Braben, he realized that the straight man, Ernie Wise, shouldn't just be a bored bystander or a feed.
He gave him an ego.
He made Ernie think he was the talented one, the pompous fool.
Right.
He's writing these plays that he thinks are Shakespearean, but they're just rubbish. And that makes the dynamic so much warmer. They aren't fighting. They are two friends sharing a bed, literally in some sketches, and just tolerating each other's delusions.
Okay, but contrast that with Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. The sources describe them as the anti-duo.
Well, yeah. If Morecambe and Wise were about warmth, Cook and Moore were about tension. Peter Cook would actively try to sabotage Dudley Moore on stage.
This is the corpsing phenomenon that's mentioned in the glossary.
Yes.
Hmm?
Corpsing is breaking character and laughing. Cook would ad-lib these absurd lines just to see if he could make more crack up.
So it added a layer of reality.
Totally. You weren't just watching a sketch, you were watching a psychological game between two friends.
It feels very modern. It's that kind of meta-humor we see now. But this isn't just a Western phenomenon. I was surprised to see how universal this structure is. The notes on Japan were really interesting.
Manzai. It's a huge cultural institution in Japan.
And it maps perfectly to the Western model.
Structurally, yes. You have the tsukomi, that's the straight man, and the book, the funny man. But the execution is very distinct. The pacing is incredibly fast, often centered on these rapid-fire misunderstandings and verbal puns. It's just high-velocity comedy.
And then in Italy, you have Franco and Tricio. The stack says they did 112 films together. That sounds exhausting.
Quantity over quality, maybe, but they were ubiquitous. What's really cool there is that directors started messing with their dynamic.
How so?
Well, a director like Lucio Fulci, who is actually famous for horror movies, would cast them and just swap their roles. He'd make the funny guy the serious one.
Which implies that these roles are just masks. You can take them off and swap them if the script calls for it.
Precisely. It proves that the double act is a formula that transcends the specific people doing it.
Okay, so that's the supportive script. I set you up, you knock it down. We are a team. But then the sources pivot to the dark side of the moon. The roast.
The script of affectionate hostility.
Such a weird social contract, isn't it? I'm going to say terrible things about you, and you're going to sit there and laugh.
It's a high wire act. And the source material, it traces this back to the New York Friars Club in the early 1900s. It started as a private pressure valve.
So it wasn't for an audience.
Not at first. You have all these entertainers who have to be polite and professional in public. So behind closed doors, they let off steam by being absolutely vile to one another.
But the key distinction the article makes is that they were peers.
That is the crucial distinction. You only roast the ones you love, or at least the ones you respect. The insult is actually a validation of status.
So if you aren't worth roasting, you aren't even in the club.
You're not in the club. It plays on the term toastmaster. A roastmaster is honoring you just with fire instead of champagne.
Which brings us to Don Rickles.
The merchant of venom.
The notes here argue he functioned differently than a modern roaster. He wasn't just mean, he was using it as a defense mechanism.
Rickles' style came from dealing with hecklers in, strip clubs and tough lounges. He learned that if he attacked the audience first, he controlled the room.
A preemptive strike.
Exactly. But if you watch him, and the sources make a point of this, he attacked everyone. Black, white, Jewish, Irish, fat, thin. By insulting everyone equally, he actually created this weird kind of unity.
He democratized the insult.
He did. No one was safe, so everyone was included. It was an equalizer.
But then we get to the televised era, the Dean Martin roasts in the 70s, and later the Comedy Central era. The sources suggest a shift here. It becomes less about old pals and more about shock value.
It became a spectator sport. When you put it on TV, the intimacy of the Friars Club is gone. Now you have professional comedians roasting a celebrity they might barely know for an audience of millions.
And the affection part of the affectionate hostility starts to dilute.
It really does.
And that leads us to the internet. The whole roast me phenomenon on Reddit.
This is where the script just breaks, in my opinion. You have strangers asking other strangers to insult them based on a selfie.
It's roasting without the relationship.
Which is just bullying with the permission slip. The art of the roast relies on knowing the person's boundaries and dancing right on the edge. If you don't know the person, you're just throwing rocks in the dark.
Okay, so we've gone from the double act, I support you, to the roast. I attack you, but we're cool. Now, I want to pivot to this school newsletter, because at first it seems completely unrelated.
Right.
But when you read the breakdown of what these kids were doing in December 2020, they're literally learning the scripts we just talked about.
Tarnate Rise Primary, Issue 40. A true primary source document from the end of the first pandemic year.
It's a heavy read, actually. Not because it's sad, but because you can feel the effort just jumping off the page. The teachers are exhausted, the kids are exhausted, and what are they focusing on?
The core values.
Respect, responsibility, kindness, the anti-roast.
Exactly. The newsletter is basically a manual on how to rebuild a society from scratch.
So what stood out to you in the curriculum section?
The algorithms. The prep, grade 1 and grade 2 students were learning algorithms. Now, usually when we hear that word, we think coding.
Right. iPad apps, logic puzzles.
But look at the specific examples they give. The grade ones were writing algorithms for how to make a friend.
Step 1, smile. Step 2, say hello. Step 3, ask their name.
It's a script. Just like the feed sets up the punchline, these kids are breaking down social interaction into mechanical steps.
And you have to think about why. These are 6- and 7-year-olds who spent a massive chunk of their formative year isolated behind screens.
They might have actually forgotten or never fully learned the natural flow of just playing. The school is realizing that connection isn't always instinctual. Sometimes it has to be taught.
It's like they are training to be the straight man for each other. Here is how you set up an interaction so the other person can respond.
That's a great connection. And look at the grade threes. They were studying Harry Potter, but specifically, they were analyzing facial expressions and body gestures.
Reading the room.
Precisely. We talked about Laurel and Hardy using nonverbal cues because of the silent film medium. Well, 2020 was the year of the muted mic.
We all had to become silent film stars.
We really did. We had to learn to exaggerate a nod or a smile so the person on the other side of the Zoom call knew we were listening.
So the grade 3s are analyzing Snape's face to understand hostility, while the grade 1s are writing code to understand friendship.
It's all about deciphering the signals. The newsletter also mentions the 100 Days of School celebration. Usually that's a big party. In 2020, they did it via WebEx.
And they dressed up as 100-year-olds at home.
That is pure vaudeville.
It is. It's a performance.
Yeah.
I will put on a silly costume to make you laugh across this digital void. It's resilience through absurdity.
And the relief in the document is just palpable when they talk about Pizza Day.
Pizza Day and Halloween. The prep team highlights these as the major wins. It's not, we finished the math curriculum. It's, we ate pizza together.
That was the victory.
The newsletter ends with a farewell to some staff members. Amanda Wilcox and Tom McGuigan are mentioned. And the grade 6 graduation. It feels very final.
Graduation is the ultimate double act breakup, isn't it? You spent 7 years being a we, a class, a cohort, and now you have to go be an I in high school. The newsletter focuses so heavily on growth. It's acknowledging that the script has to change.
That seems to be the lesson across all these sources. The script always changes. The vaudeville guys had to change when film arrived. The roasters had to change when TV arrived.
And these kids had to change when the virus arrived. The ones who survive are the ones who can learn the new lines.
It makes you think about the straight man again. We live in a culture that really celebrates the comic, the loud one, the disruptor, the roaster. But reading this newsletter, it feels like we need more straight men.
We need more feeds.
Right. We need more people who are willing to just stand there, set up the premise, and support the other person rather than just trying to get the clip that goes viral.
The newsletter calls it kindness and responsibility. In comedy, it's called good timing. But it's the same thing. It's noticing the other person and giving them what they need to complete the scene.
So, here's the thought to leave with. We are all operating on scripts, mostly unconsciously. How are you? I'm fine. That's a script. Roast me. That's a script.
You're on mute. That's a script.
If you had to write an algorithm for your own interactions right now, like those grade 1s, what would step 1 be? Are you setting people up to look good, like Ernie Wise? Or are you just trying to corpse them, like Peter Cook?
Or are you just shouting insults into the void?
Maybe we should all go back and audit our source code.
I think the grade 1s at Tar Night Rise might be ahead of us on that one.
I think they are. Thanks for diving in.
A pleasure.
See you next time.